Hello everyone and welcome back to another Marvel Crisis Protocol Battle Report. Today we have for you 18 threat of the Criminal Syndicate versus Wakanda, who haven't been on the table for a little while. It's a new table setup. You can see we're already raring to go with the mission setup. Going with a destroyed city block type theme for no particular reason for this November. So here we are, and yeah, we're ready to get started. So let's just jump straight into looking at the teams, our tactics cards, and getting straight on with the battle. So this is what our 18th threat of Criminal Syndicate is looking like this time around. So we do still have Kingpin, we have Taskmaster, we have Bullseye, we have Crossbones, and this time we have MODOK to join the team to fill out the heavy hitter slot. And the team tactics card is being brought all according to plan: Shadow Organization, Cruelty, Extreme Conditioning, and Acute Senses. So there's also 5 miniatures in the Wakanda affiliation. It's the 4 you would expect, so Black Panther, Killmonger, Shuri and Okoye over there. But then, for no apparent synergistic reasons, Ghost Rider is also helping them out this time as their heavy hitter, so he's going to be joining them. And as a result, their team tactics cards are Wakanda Forever, Advanced R&D, Highway to Hell, Usurp the Throne, and the target for that would be MODOK, I believe, and Deal with the Devil. So the extraction mission is Struggle for the Cubes, and the Secure, which is the threat value picked for 18, is Portals overrun the city with spider people. So 5 cube fragments, you get 1 victory point for every one you're holding, but for every one you're holding in the power phase you take 1 damage. And the portals, there is 4 portals, you roll equal to your energy defense, and you have to get more than the number of healthy enemy characters on crits, wows and hits, and for each one you control you score 1 victory point. And if you get a skull when you're trying to claim one of the spider portals, you get moved by your opponent to within 2 of your current position. So although none of the teams are deployed yet, you can see the portals are there, and the cube fragments there, smack dab in the middle, and there, and there. So we'll see which side each team is deploying on and be back at deployment. So both teams are both set up, and it will be the Criminal Syndicate going first in Battle Round 1. They have deployed on your left, the Wakanda affiliation are on your right. Taskmaster off on his lonesome, then we have MODOK, Bullseye, Crossbones, and right at the end there we have Kingpin. Then over here we have Killmonger, Okoye, Ghost Rider, and then down here Black Panther and Shuri deployed together, all of them basically as far forwards as possible. We might actually see some violence in turn 1, I guess we'll see as we jump into it. So first activation when there is an odd number of assets to take on the table is very important, and as a result Bullseye activated first. He double moved medium, so medium move, he ignored the portal there, he went right to barely within 1 of the central cube fragments, spent his 1 power and picked it up, also trying to make sure he's partially obscured by the cover there to maybe give him a cover bonus, but we'll see. Snatching that one up is very important, if he can get away alive with it, that is. Ghost Rider, the guest appearance in this Wakanda affiliation, decided to activate first. He moved forward medium on his larger base, which got him within range to do his basic attack on Bullseye, but he blocked it. It was energy, 3 energy defense was more than enough, it was a bad roll. So Bullseye lives, and even if he had been hit, the power with which he would have generated from taking damage, he's perfect for that kind of thing, because then he can do parting shot and run away even more. So it was a good thing sending him after the middle. But doesn't matter because Ghost Rider missed anyway. MODOK was next up. He moved small to get close enough to the far side of that portal there, spent 1 power on it to try and claim it and succeeded. In lieu of not having Criminal Syndicate tokens, just going to use Hydra ones for portals they've claimed. However, his energy roll had a success, which was enough, but it also had a skull, so he got moved within 2, and this is why you should choose the order you do things in more cleverly. So he got moved back 2, so he had to use his other action to move forwards again, as opposed to what he was going to do, which was potentially attack Ghost Rider if he was within range. It's going to be a little bit hard to get camera angle on, but Killmonger was the next up. He moved medium and spent 1 power to pick up the cube fragment that was at the side of the destroyed church there, and then he moved medium again to get within 1 of that portal, but obviously he doesn't have the power to interact with it. He's simply standing there to make it harder to claim. So slow old Crossbones activated, and he could only double small move. He did stop after his after his second, to spend the 1 power he got in the power phase to pick up the cube fragment. So if nothing else, he has got a cube fragment, and he's very slowly heading towards the portal where Killmonger is defending. Okoye activated and she had a busy turn. So first of all, she moved to where you can see her within the portal, but did it in the right order. So instead of immediately trying to claim it, although she did eventually succeed, as you can see, she did a vibranium spear throw on Bullseye, hit him, and it did 2 damage, but that also provided him exactly enough power to use parting shot, which means he does 1 true damage to whoever smacked him, so that's why Okoye is taking 1 damage, and then he gets to advance small. So he has retreated to the portal, which is going to free up MODOK as well. So although Bullseye took 2 damage, he did do 1 damage back. He has moved back to safely secure that portal. Okoye is obviously taking 1 damage. She spent her power, and she also gets 1 power just for doing damage with Spear Thrower. I don't even remember if it needs to do damage, but you get 1 power for it. She spent 1 power on converting the portal and has succeeded. Kingpin was the second last activation for the Criminal Syndicate, and he just moved up small twice to where you can see him getting ready to do some street level negotiation perhaps with Killmonger after that. So now it's over to Black Panther or Shuri, and then back over to Taskmaster to end off their first turn. So perhaps expected a Black Panther's turn. He can move long, so he easily cleared the distance required to get to this portal, and he has converted it. Now if Taskmaster wants to, he can go try and convert that back. It's a little bit harder because Black Panther is there, but there's also a cube fragment to grab, so we'll see what he does. Taskmaster decided to snatch up the cube fragment, so that was a double move to position him where you can see him, spent the 1 power he had to pick it up, and the reasoning for that is because Criminal Syndicate counts as each healthy character as 2, that means once those portals get converted, they're hard to convert back, so there's no rush. That's the thinking there. So over to Shuri to end the turn. Shuri moved up, medium, and then spent 1 power to pick up the cube fragment that was there. She fired her Panther Gauntlets, range 5, at Taskmaster, who was there. They hit through and they do 1 damage regardless of how much gets through. So I did 1 damage and pushed him away small, so he kind of came to a stop there because his head won't fit underneath the platform there. So that does take us to the end of Battle Round 1 and the adding up of the score. So at the end of Battle Round 1, Wakanda has 2 of the portals claimed and has 2 of the cube fragments, so that means they're at 4 victory points. The Criminal Syndicate have 3 cube fragments and 1 portal for a total of 4 victory points. So as we go into Battle Round 2 with the Criminal Syndicate going first activation again, it's all even, 4 victory points each. Oh, and totally forgot, before we stop, everyone who's holding a cube fragment, they take 1 damage but gain an extra power as well. The Kingpin got Battle Round 2 started for Criminal Syndicate. He moved up small, he headbutted Killmonger, which also got the push and the stun. It pushed him into the dumpster there. He then did street level negotiations with the power he generated to pick up Killmonger and chuck him right under there, so you can see him. 1 more damage from the impact, then spent 1 power to turn that portal to the Criminal Syndicate affiliation, making that one very hard to take back, and Killmonger, with the 1 damage he took from the cube fragment, 2 away from being dazed. We're staying over here, and I know you can't see him, but Killmonger was the first activation for Wakanda this turn. He spent his 3 power for a Black Ops strike on the Kingpin. It would have done 5 damage. There was 5 crits in that initial roll. Kingpin spent 1 power to reduce the damage received by 1, so that's why he's only taken 4. And it does say if you do damage, you have to be placed within 1 of Kingpin, so he was. So then he used his second action for the turn to medium move and hide around the far side of the church, because he is almost dazed and he is holding a cube fragment, and he's taking 1 damage at the end of the turn, obviously, from the cube fragment, so he doesn't want to get even scraped by anything without being close to support. So he's fleed. Black Ops Strike doesn't generate power anyway, but had it have done, he didn't get rid of the stun, so he would only have gained 1 power. MODOK activated, moved up small for his first activation, and then did his basic psionic blast on Okoye to try for, in theory, an easy daze, but he only did 2 damage, so she is still conscious on 1 HP, and Ghost Rider also generated 1 power for not being the target of that attack within 3. He technically could have thrown a boulder or something at Ghost Rider. He's banking for a Doomsday Chair. Shuri was next up for Wakanda, and first of all she used advanced R&D and invested her 3 power into it, because you can do up to 5. You pick teammates and give them 1 power each. So Black Panther got given 1 power, Ghost Rider got given 1 power, and so did Okoye. So then Shuri moved on this side of the portal and then just did her Panther Gauntlet Blast, her basic one for free, on Taskmaster, shoved him that way again, back a little bit, and obviously again it just does 1 set damage regardless of how much gets through. Crossbones was next to activate for the Criminal Syndicate and used Extreme Conditioning, which is you spend 2 power and you get long movement instead of whatever you normally get, in his case small, for the first advance you do in your turn. Actually, is it just the first or is it both? Not that it matters for what he did, I'm just curious. I guess it would be for both. Again, it doesn't matter because of what he did, but he moved, and the original plan was to try and use that to get just around the corner there so he could attack Killmonger. Couldn't quite reach. So instead he went kind of like L-shaped to get roughly here, again out of range to take out Okoye before she gets a turn, so he just moved small and fitted in between her and Ghost Rider there just to be a problem that's going to be quite hard to ignore, because once he eventually gets in there, he can be annoying, and Extreme Conditioning is a good way to make Crossbones do that in lieu of anyone having teleport powers. So Okoye finally decided to activate. She started with a Vibranium Spear Thrust, which did nothing to Crossbones, so then she resorted to a Blast. It's only 4 attack dice, but he does only have 2 energy defense, and all said and done, it did an amazing 1 damage, so she hasn't moved, did nothing else, and managed to just do 1 damage. Pretty disappointing. The Master of Tasks, Taskmaster, activated. He stayed where he was. He doesn't want to go in because he's too close to death and he's holding a shard, or a cube, sorry. So he did a shield throw. It works exactly the same as Captain America's. Didn't get the wild for a ricochet. He did it at Shuri because she's also holding a cube fragment. It whiffed, didn't do anything. So then he retreated with his medium move over here to Bullseye just in case he manages to go down. Ghost Rider activated and stayed where he was to cause some trouble in the middle of the map. He used Chains of Damnation on Crossbones. It did 2 damage, but it was reduced to 1 by him spending 1 for Inured to Pain. And it also got a wild, so it did Hex. Hex just means that, what does Hex do again? It's not Incinerate, so it's not the defense dice. It means, you don't roll extra dice for criticals, which might be important. So Crossbones, unless he gets rid of that status, won't be rolling additional dice for criticals. And that 1 power also gave Ghost Rider enough to use Penance Stare, and he did it on MODOK, so it's a 5 base Mystic plus up to 5 for how much power they have sitting on them, so that became 8. MODOK counters wilds, of course, and it didn't do super well. It did 2 damage all said and done, which isn't that great for 5 power invested, but it also saps power rather than giving power, so MODOK's just got 1 power left, which means that Doomsday Chair has been belayed a little bit, so not too bad. Over to Bullseye now for the Crime Syndicate's last activation in Battle Round 2. So Bullseye moved medium to where you can see him, and then he chucked a throwing knife at Shuri, and it did 1 damage. Could have been worse. So now it's over to Black Panther to decide what he wants to do with his long movement to end off the second battle round. So Black Panther moved up long right next to Poindexter. He used 2 power for Mantle the Black Panther so he can reroll attack dice, and then he did his basic strike on him and it got through very well. It did 5 damage, it only needed to do 2, so Bullseye was dazed, and then he spent 1 power from the power he generated from the attack to pick up the Fallen Cube Fragment. So Black Panther has that now, and that does take us to the scoring for Battle Round 2. So with that last minute snatch of a cube fragment by Black Panther, the tie has been broken barely. The Criminal Syndicate holds 2 portals, the one with Taskmaster next to it, the one with Kingpin next to it, and they still hold on to 2 cube fragments on Crossbones and Taskmaster, both of whom will be 2 away from death once they get damaged by the cube in the power phase. But that's 4 victory points, taking them to 8. Wakanda still has 2 portals, the one at the far end of the table, the one that Shuri is standing next to, and they of course now have 3 fragments with the one Black Panther grabbed because Killmonger is still holding on to one, although his one is now going to put him 1 hit away from death, and Shuri has one which is going to put her 2 hits away from death, but it does give them a 1 point lead as we go into Battle Round 3 with Crime Syndicate still going first, and it's 9 playing 8 in Wakanda's favour. So I believe for the second turn in a row, Kingpin got things started. He moved small to get close enough to initiate street level negotiations with Killmonger by chucking him into the building over there. The 1 damage was enough to daze him. He spent 1 power to pick up the Fallen Cube Fragment, and then for his other actual action, because street level was just a chuck, he then just moved back towards the portal right there. So he's sitting on a cube, it's going to start hurting him, but he did his part and Killmonger will not be getting a turn this battle round. Ghost Rider activated and used Chains of Damnation on Crossbones. It did 3, could have brought it down to 2, but 2 still kills him, so just took the 3. Crossbones is dazed and will also not be getting an activation, And then Ghost Rider picked up the cube fragment the Crossbones dropped and has scarpered over in this direction to try and avoid Doomsday Chairs. Not deterred from acting, MODOK activated. He moved up small. He did his psionic blast on Okoye, did 6 damage, only needed to do 1. That's a little overkill. So she is very much dazed and will not be getting an activation either. He then spent 1 power. He actually sapped at least 1 from her, so that was an easy spend to then convert this back portal here to the Criminal Syndicate. And it's going to be very difficult to shift as a result of them counting as 2. And yeah, so Okoye's not getting a turn, so it's over to either Black Panther or Shuri. The King of Wakanda, the Black Panther, activated next, and he had a busy turn. First of all, he did a basic strike on Bullseye, kind of whiffed. He also did use Mantle the Black Panther for it, did 1 damage. Bullseye spent 2 power to do Parting Shot, so he did 1 damage back to Black Panther and retreated small. Then Black Panther spent 2 power to do a leap, plonked himself right there, not close enough to try and switch the portal. He then just did a basic strike for his other second proper action, because the leap doesn't count as an action, and hit Taskmaster for 2, which was exactly enough to daze him. He dropped his shard and he paid 1 power to pick it up. So Black Panther is sitting on 2 shards, even though he couldn't quite get to the portal there to convert it. And with Taskmaster getting dazed, it's over to Bullseye and then over to Shuri for the turn. So Bullseye stayed where he was, and first of all he spent the power for a pincushion attack, which is a double 5 physical attack. They both could not get through the vibranium armor of the Black Panther, but he still does bleed regardless. So then he spent 1 power on I Never Miss. If he does an attack that does no damage, you do 1 true damage. Done. And then for his other actual action, because the secondary pincushion is a free one, he just did a basic throwing knife and it did 1 damage. Now that's interesting, because now when it rolls around to the power phase in the next turn, Black Panther is exploding like a loot pinata and dropping those shards, because that's going to be enough to daze him. They're still going to score this turn, because there's no one left to go for Crime Syndicate, but he is going to drop them, and that's bad. So it's over to Shuri to end off battle round 3. So from where she was, Shuri double medium moved to where you can see her there. She spent 1 power and she converted this portal, because remember Taskmaster is dazed, so he's not counting as anything, to Wakanda affiliation, and that does take us to the scoring for the battle round. So that last minute grab for points for Wakanda put them in a very, very powerful situation, even though as we roll around to the start of battle round 4, boom, 2 cube fragments on the ground and Crime Syndicate are going first, so they can just hoover them up. But for now, in the cleanup phase, Black Panther has 2 of them, Ghost Rider has 1, Shuri has 1, so that's them holding 4 out of the 5. And with that last minute steal, they also hold 2 of the portals for 6 total victory points, taking them to 15 out of the 16 required to win. So the Crime Syndicate has to stop them scoring anything in battle round 4 to turn this around. It's not impossible, but it's improbable. On the Crime Syndicate side, Kingpin is holding a cube fragment, and they hold 2 portals for 3, putting them at a respectable 12. So as we go into battle round 4, Crime Syndicate going first, 15 plays 11, and of course Black Panther isn't getting a turn because he's about to daze himself, and we've got some characters flipping their cards and waking up. So Taskmaster, who was sitting on a lot of power, activated first for this battle round. He spent 2 power to pick up the 2 cube fragments dropped by Black Panther, of course, and then he did a basic strike on Shuri. It did enough to stun her, so then he paid 1 power to pick up the cube fragment that she dropped, so he's now holding 3. He spent 1 power to convert the portal. He did, but it also had a skull in the roll, so he got moved within 2, so he's been moved there. But all in all, he's technically generated 4 victory points unless he goes down before the end of the turn. So begins the heroic effort of trying to murder Taskmaster. Okoye activated, she moved medium and then did a spear blast in his general direction. It only did 1 damage, but it's a start. I think he has 6 health on his wounded side, so he's got 5 remaining. MODOK activated and stayed where he was, although swiveled him on the spot just to show which way he's attacking. He did his Doomsday Chair within range 3 on Ghost Rider, and as you can see, it did a stupendous 5 damage, plus the 1 on him already puts him at 6. He is 1 health away from dying. It also does bleed, and then he tried to do a Psionic Blast just to finish him off, to make him drop the cube fragment he's holding and not get a turn. Didn't do any damage, so Ghost Rider has lived. Now, as it rolls over to turn 5, he's going to get dazed, but the game is probably going to end at the end of turn 4 regardless. He will, however, have to get rid of the bleed if he wants his cube fragment to count as a score. So feasibly Bullseye or Crossbones would still have to activate could reach Ghost Rider, so he activated, and all he could do, he cured his bleed for first action and then fled over here for second action just to guarantee that cube score. Nothing else he could do. So it's over to Kingpin, Crossbones or Bullseye now, and they don't really need to do much, I don't think. Bullseye double medium move, kind of L shape there and then L shape here a little bit, and he got over, and as you can see he spent 1 power and he converted the portal to the Criminal Syndicate. So right now the only point the Wakandans are scoring is the cube fragment on Ghost Rider, and they only have Killmonger left to activate. So Killmonger went for a bit of a Hail Mary. He moved forwards medium, then he did Black Ops Strike on Kingpin, and it did amazingly well. It did 5 damage. He only needed to do 2 to daze him because of the damage that's been accumulating on him, so it wouldn't have mattered even if he'd shrugged 1 for 1 power. So it dazed him, and then after the attack, if you dealt damage, you're allowed to move within 1 of the target. He was already within 1 of the target, but presumably that means you can shift, although it doesn't matter because he spent the 1 last power he had to pick up the cube fragment that Kingpin dropped, so he had nothing left to try and convert the portal. Now that does mean Kingpin's not getting an activation, and that does mean that Crossbones is the last one left. He's so slow, he isn't going to get to Ghost Rider, he isn't going to get over here, so we're just going to skip to the end of the round, because one way or another, this game is now over. So this is an interesting one because Wakanda needed exactly 1 victory point to hit the 16 cap and win. They got 2 because Ghost Rider survived with a cube fragment, and so did Killmonger right at the end there, taking them to technically 17. And the Criminal Syndicate were trailing on 10 or 11, but they have all 4 portals, and Taskmaster sitting on 3 of the cube fragments, meaning that they got a total of 7 there. So if you go past the score cap, even though both technically got to it, the final score is 17 to Wakanda and 18 to Criminal Syndicate. So that was a really close one, and I was very surprised that the Criminal Syndicate's affiliation bonus didn't come into effect in terms of the healthy characters counting for 2, making it harder for the portals to be got. But I guess that's what happens when you've got 5 cube fragments you can snatch up instead. They could technically have passed off a cube fragment. I'm not sure Bullseye was in a position to, given how wounded Taskmaster was. That's the other half of their affiliation bonus if you aren't aware. But it all worked out for them in the end because they technically won by 1 point, even though both sides got over the score cap at the end of turn 4. If it went into turn 5, Ghost Rider would have automatically dazed. Taskmaster would have... Well, no, he wouldn't have quite made it. I got his health wrong. On his wounded side he's at 5, and he was at 4. With 3 cube fragments he would take 3, so yeah, he'd have 1 hit left, but Okoye could probably do that to him, or the flipped over Black Panther or Okoye, Shuri. So he would have dropped those 3 fragments had it gone to turn 5, and there's not as many Criminal Syndicate over around him where he got shifted, so I think they would have swung it had it gone 1 more turn, if it needed to. But either way, I like it when it's a close match, and this was certainly a close match. Please do remember to show your support if you'd like to see more in the future. Thank you very much for watching. Please do subscribe as well if you want to see more in the future for Crisis Protocol and the other games we cover here. Thanks for watching, and until next time, ta-ta for now.